My husband passed away without warning. 3 days later, a notary handed me a set of keys to a luxury penthouse downtown in my name. He'd never let me ask about his business trips while he was alive. I planned to sell the place. But first, I decided to see it with my own eyes. When I unlocked that door and stepped inside, I stopped breathing, because someone was already sitting in the living room, waiting. I never imagined I'd be holding keys to a life I didn't know existed. It had been 3 weeks since Daniel's funeral, and I was still finding traces of him scattered through our house on Birchwood Lane. His reading glasses sat folded on the nightstand. His coffee thermos was still in the dish rack, rinsed but never put away. Every morning, the light came through the front windows, exactly the way it always had. Quiet, familiar, unchanged. But the house itself felt hollow, like it was waiting for footsteps that would never come again. I was 58 years old, and for the first time in my adult life, I had no idea what came next. The doorbell pulled me out of my thoughts. Through the peephole, I saw Mr. Alderman, our family attorney, standing on the porch with a manila envelope pressed flat against his chest. His expression was careful in the way people get when they're delivering news you haven't prepared yourself to hear. "Caroline," he said when I opened the door. "There's something Daniel left instructions about. Something he specifically asked me to bring to you after the service was done." I brought him into the living room, the same room where Daniel and I had spent 32 years of quiet evenings, the same couch, the same corner lamp, the same comfortable silence that felt completely different now that it was permanent. Mr. Alderman sat across from me and set the envelope on his knee like it was something fragile. "Daniel came to see me about 7 months ago," he said slowly. "He updated certain arrangements, not his main will, something separate. Instructions about a property." My throat tightened. In 32 years, Daniel had never kept anything significant from me. We shared accounts, decisions, even disagreements out in the open. Transparency was something we both believed in, or at least, I thought we did. "What property?" I asked. He opened the envelope and removed a set of keys. Silver, modern, attached to a small card with an address typed in clean letters. Meridian Tower, Unit 1804. And beneath it, in Daniel's handwriting, the same handwriting that had signed our anniversary cards for 3 decades, 2 words. "For Caroline." I stared at those words for a long time. "He purchased it 9 years ago," Mr. Alderman said quietly. "The deed was in his name, but his instructions transfer full ownership to you effective immediately. No delays." 9 years. For 9 years, my husband had owned a property I knew nothing about. The man who told me everything, who called me from business trips just to say goodnight, who consulted me before buying a new lawnmower, had been quietly paying for an entire apartment across the city. "Why?" I said. It was barely a sound. Mr. Alderman chose his words carefully. He said it was connected to his work, that he sometimes needed a place to stay when meetings ran late. But he was very specific about one condition. He paused. "You weren't to know about it while he was alive." He asked me to keep that confidence. He said certain things were better left private. The business trips. Of course. For over a decade, Daniel had traveled regularly to the city for what he called project consultations. Whenever I'd asked for details, which clients, what kind of work, he'd grow quiet and redirect the conversation. After a while, I stopped pushing. I told myself it was his professional life, his space. I told myself that trust didn't always require full transparency. I sat in our living room holding those silver keys and trying to understand the man I thought I knew completely. Mr. Alderman told me one more thing before he left. Daniel had specifically asked that I visit the apartment alone the first time. He said there might be things inside that would take some time to process privately. Things that would take time to process privately. The drive to Meridian Tower took me 40 minutes through downtown traffic on a gray Tuesday afternoon. The building was all glass and polished steel, the kind of structure that reflects everything around it while revealing nothing of its own interior. A uniformed doorman greeted me in the lobby. "I'm here for Unit 1804, I said. He checked his screen and nodded. "Of course. Mr. Daniel mentioned you might be coming by." Mr. Daniel, not Mr. Hargrove. Just Daniel, like he was someone the staff knew well, someone with an identity here that had nothing to do with our home on Birchwood Lane. The elevator was slow. My reflection in the polished doors looked older than I expected. Tired. I barely recognized the woman staring back at me. Unit 1804 was at the end of a long corridor. I stood outside the door longer than I should have. Whatever was behind it would change something. I could feel that much without knowing anything else. I unlocked it and stepped inside. The apartment was beautiful and completely unfamiliar. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a view of the city that stretched to the horizon, furniture that was modern and thoughtful, artwork on the walls in styles Daniel had never once shown interest in when we'd furnished our own home together. Everything was well kept, lived in, and then I heard it. Soft music from deeper inside the apartment. The low, easy sound of jazz drifting from somewhere near the back. And beneath it, footsteps. The quiet sound of someone moving through the kitchen. "Hello?" My voice came out uncertain. The footsteps stopped. A long silence. Then they resumed, moving toward me quick and light, and a young man appeared in the kitchen doorway. He was maybe 30 years old, dark hair, a calm face, and eyes that stopped me cold. Daniel's eyes. The exact same shade, the exact same shape, with that same careful steadiness I had loved for 32 years. He was wearing a simple gray shirt, and he was holding a dish towel. And he looked at me the way someone looks at a person they've been expecting for a very long time. Around his neck was a thin leather cord with a small pendant. I recognized a compass charm that had belonged to Daniel's father. Daniel had said it was lost years ago. The young man took one step forward and said, quietly, "You must be Caroline." He paused. "My mother told me you'd come." The room tilted. I reached for the back of the nearest chair to keep myself upright. "I'm Marcus," he said. "I'm your husband's son." I sat down before my legs gave out. He told me everything, slowly, carefully, the way someone does when they've rehearsed the conversation to make it as gentle as possible. His mother had met Daniel years before I did. They'd had a relationship that ended when she discovered she was pregnant. She hadn't told him, hadn't wanted to complicate his life or her own. She'd raised Marcus largely alone, and when Marcus was older, Daniel had found out. "He came to find me about 10 years ago," Marcus said. "I wasn't sure I wanted anything to do with him at first. But he was patient. He said he wasn't trying to replace anything or disrupt anyone's life. He just wanted to know me. 10 years. Daniel had known his son for 10 years. He'd been careful, deliberately, painfully careful, to keep that part of his life separate from our home. Not out of cruelty, Marcus told me, but out of fear. Fear that I would feel betrayed. Fear that it would break something between us that he wasn't willing to risk. "He talked about you constantly," Marcus said. "He said you were the most steady person he'd ever known, that he didn't deserve you." I didn't say anything for a long moment. "He left instructions," Marcus continued, standing and walking to a shelf near the window. He returned with a box wooden, simple, with a small latch. He said if anything ever happened to him, I should give this to you when you came. Inside the box were letters, a stack of them, each one dated, written in Daniel's handwriting. The first one was from 10 years ago. The last was from 3 months before he died. I didn't read them there. I couldn't, but I held them in my lap and understood, slowly, that my husband had spent 10 years trying to figure out how to tell me the truth, writing it down, revising it, starting over, trying to find the version of the story that wouldn't hurt me. He never found it, so he left me the keys instead. Marcus sat across from me in that apartment filled with afternoon light and said nothing more for a while. He wasn't asking for anything. He wasn't angry or sad or demanding. He was just present, steady, patient, with Daniel's eyes. Eventually I asked him what he did for work. He said he was a structural engineer. He said Daniel had helped him through school. I looked down at the letters in my hands. Then I looked back at this young man who had my husband's face and a lifetime of questions that didn't have clean answers. "I don't know what I'm supposed to do with all of this," I said honestly. Marcus nodded, like that was the most reasonable thing I could have said. "Neither do I," he replied. "But Mom always said the honest answer is a better place to start than a comfortable lie." I thought about Daniel. About 32 years of a life I thought I understood completely. About all the evenings and anniversaries and quiet mornings that were real, they were real even now. I didn't leave right away. We sat in that apartment for another hour, Marcus and I, talking carefully, slowly, the way two strangers do when they realize they are not quite strangers after all. Outside, the city moved on without us, and I held my husband's letters and understood that some truths arrive too late, but they still deserve to be heard.